Can you imagine a single viral video sparking a massive government crackdown? One that freezes billions of dollars in funding basically overnight? Well, for millions of families and their childcare providers, that's not a hypothetical, it's exactly what happened. We're gonna unpack how this all went down and what it really means.
So, here's the big question we're tackling today. We're going to dive into a pretty complex story that, believe it or not, started with a single social media post, triggered a nationwide policy whiplash, and left millions of American families just stuck in limbo. All right, to really get what's going on, we have to start at the beginning. We need to look at the one single event that kicked off this massive nationwide policy shift. And let me tell you, it all happened incredibly fast. Okay, so picture this. It's December 26th, the day after Christmas. A video posted by a right-wing social media influencer starts blowing up. It claims that daycare centers in Minnesota, specifically ones run by Somali Americans, were cheating the government out of millions. Now, the video didn't have a lot of hard proof, but it didn't matter. It went viral. And that set off an immediate and really powerful chain reaction in Washington. Now, the money at the heart of all this comes from something called the Child Care and Development Fund, or CCDF. You gotta understand, this program is absolutely crucial. It's a financial lifeline that helps low-income working families pay for childcare so they can actually go to their jobs. And this is where things just explode. Just 4 days after that video went viral, on December 30th, the Department of Health and Human Services, that's HHS, took this huge, dramatic step. The Deputy Secretary announced a nationwide freeze on these funds, all under the banner of a new system called Defend the Spend. So, the administration brings down the hammer. But what did this crackdown actually look like on paper? Let's dig into the new policy and the official reasons the administration gave for making such a sweeping move. Well, the rules of the game changed overnight. The new mandate for states to get their money was immediate, and it was strict. All of a sudden, they had to provide written justifications for payments, receipts, even photographic evidence, just to prove that every single dollar was going to what they called a legitimate provider. This was a massive, massive shift from how things were done just days earlier. Now, the administration's public reasoning for all of this was about fiscal accountability. The argument was pretty simple. Without these super tight controls, it's just too easy for fraud to happen. They said that taxpayers deserve proof that their money is paying for actual services for real kids. And this right here, this shows a huge fundamental shift in philosophy. See, the old rules were designed to give providers financial stability. They paid based on how many kids were enrolled. But the new rules, they pay based on who shows up each day. It completely shifts the focus to verifying every single transaction, which creates a ton of volatility for these small businesses. Okay, so that's the policy, but what does it all mean on the ground, for the people who actually depend on this funding? Let's take a look at the immediate consequences of this really abrupt change. To really understand the impact, you have to get the sheer scale of this. We are talking about 1.4 million children. That's how many kids, along with over 857,000 low-income families, were supported by this program every single month. All of them were hit by this freeze. So as you can imagine, the reaction from people in the childcare world was immediate. Advocates described the situation as chaos and confusion. States were left totally scrambling, completely unsure of what new data they needed to hand over to get the money flowing again. It just created this deep, deep uncertainty. And that chaos created a huge domino effect. I mean, childcare providers operate on razor-thin margins. Experts were warning that going even 1 month without funding could force centers to close their doors for good. And that doesn't just hurt the kids on subsidies, it threatens the entire center. The whole situation escalated so fast that 23 states actually banded together and filed a lawsuit to block the policy. And to see how this plays out in a real state, just look at New York. Governor Kathy Hochul came out and said about $3 billion in funding is now at risk. Think about that. With almost 75% of New York's subsidy funding coming from the feds, this freeze just throws their own plans to expand childcare into total chaos. And you better believe the political reaction was just as intense. New York State Senator Jabari Brisport slammed the decision, basically vowing to fight back. This funding crisis is now forcing state officials to scramble for emergency solutions, like even talking about raising taxes on the wealthy just to try and fill this massive, unexpected hole in their budget. Okay, so here's where the story gets even bigger. It turns out this sudden freeze, it wasn't a one-off thing. It was actually the public face of a much larger, government-wide initiative with a very, very direct mission. The whole thing is called Defend the Spend. And on the surface, it's framed as a pretty common sense way to govern, right? Cut waste, be more transparent, and make sure every single taxpayer dollar is accounted for. This system is the brainchild of a brand new agency, the Department of Government Efficacy, or DOGE. Its whole purpose is to add another layer of review. It forces federal agencies to get extra approvals for expenses before they can release money that Congress has already signed off on. That child care fund freeze, that's just one big example of this system in action. But, and this is a huge but, critics are basically saying this whole system is completely redundant. Groups like the Council on Governmental Relations argue that it doesn't actually create any new oversight. It just duplicates the many, many layers of financial controls and audits that are already in place. And this chart really breaks down why they're saying that. Before, there were already at least 7 different checkpoints for approving spending. Defend the Spend just jams 5 more hurdles into the process. And what's the main result? Payments get delayed, sometimes for months. So the irony here is pretty massive. A system designed to save money is actually creating all these new costs. Critics estimate it's already led to over 50,000 hours of redundant paperwork. And these delays, they can actually violate federal law and put all kinds of time-sensitive projects, from medical research to, yes, childcare, in serious jeopardy. When you boil it all down, what we're really seeing here is a classic Washington conflict. On one side, you have this aggressive, top-down push to stamp out any possibility of fraud. And on the other, you have the critical need for stable, predictable funding for essential services that millions of people rely on every single day. And that really leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? And there's no easy answer. How do you build a system that protects taxpayer money without completely paralyzing the very services that money is supposed to provide? It's a challenge that gets right to the heart of how government should work.
And that's our breakdown for today. Thanks so much for joining us to understand the bigger picture here.